And this is a really important tool in its own right, partly because it's of interest to researchers and policymakers to actually, to look at the historical events and see how important they were in various different regions, and compare that with what the impacts were. So it's useful in itself as a historical document, if you like. But it's also really important because this is a benchmark of the floods and droughts that occurred in Europe in the 20th century that were observed. And this does allow us to actually have a data set of extremes in Europe at a regional scale with which we can use as a baseline to compare against model data. And this is one of the key things in Work Block 4. Obviously a lot of Watch is about comparing the observations from these large-scale models and comparing them with the outputs from these large-scale models and trying to validate them against observations. And one of the key ways we've been involved in doing that, that's being done through Watch on various different scales in various different places, but one of our main contributions has been taking our observed flood and drought catalogues and then taking the model outputs using exactly the same methodology to look at the floods and droughts in the historical outputs of the models over the 20th century, and then just comparing the two together and actually trying to see how well the models do reproduce those historical floods and droughts. So it's essentially a validation tool for comparing the outputs from the models. And one of the key things is that these models have been validated quite a lot they've been validated against runoff from large river basins quite extensively in the past, and they've also been validated against various climatic observations. But in some ways there's not really been much validation of the extremes, the floods and droughts that comes out of these models, and there's not really been much that's been done at a regional rather than a large catchment scale. So that's one of the unique selling points of the work that we've done.